All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I am Cheska Cordero from Insightful Accountant and your host for today. Now, before we start, as everyone's kind of coming in, because I see a lot of people kind of coming in already, um, question of the day. Okay, Mike, so it's Valentine's Day, right? And I just want to know, what do you think is a staple for people to do on Valentine's Day, or if you had any special plans for the day?
Well, I mean, first, let me tell you this. Valentine's Day is super important because it is the one day of the year where you have to prove you love somebody.
Yes.
So,
One
you,
time a year.
you can say it every day, all the 5 times a day, but this is the day you have to show up and prove it. So,
True.
so
Agree.
now, proof is in a lot of different ways. I mean, I think, based on what I know my person enjoys, and I always tell people reflect on the 5 love languages. Right? Hers is quality time. If I hit quality time all day, I'm winning.
True, I agree. Like
Some people,
a lot of people kind of forget about the love language thing, which is I think you should really tap into whatever your partner's love language is, right? So that immediately just hits the mark. For as a woman, I think that's really important. Okay.
yeah.
All
See,
right.
how'd I do? That was on. I didn't know that was coming.
That was great. Yeah, it's great. All right. Well, again, good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Again, I am Cheska Cordero from Insightful Accountant and your host for today. Now, in this Cashflow Mastery Talks, we'll be going over pricing strategies for profitability, finding the right balance with the amazing Mike Milan. Now, I'll have Mike introduce himself in just a little bit after I cover a few of the housekeeping items. Now, there is no CPE for this as it is just a 30-minute webinar. If you have any questions, you know the drill. Please enter them in the Q&A panel, and I want you guys to be specific. You can't just say, what you mean? You got to ask, hey, Mike, what do you mean by you really got to tap into the love languages? Now, mainly because he might not get well, he might not get to your question right after you put it in there. Now, we will be sending you a copy of the slide deck and a link to the recording after the webinar, and it's also going to be up on our YouTube page within about 24 hours if you want to go check it out over there, along with many other webinars that Mike has done also with us that might be of interest to you. I'll also be putting that link right into our chat. And do not forget, we also have many other webinars for you this month, whether you're interested in practice management, marketing, tax, or all things QuickBooks. We've got something for you. Now, you can check out all our webinars that are available to you over on our educational webinars page on our site. And do not worry, I'll also be putting that link right into our chat. Now, I will be rolling out all those links for you and the copy of the slide deck throughout the webinar in case you might have missed it the first time put it in there. So watch out for those in the chat. All right. That was a mouthful, but Mike, that's it for me. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thank you very much. I appreciate it as usual. This is my favorite part of the month. So, live from San Antonio is Cashflow Mike, and I got a question for you. While I'm getting this set up, I got a question for you. I actually heard this a few months ago, and I think I've used it a couple times. And welcome everybody that just was joining me on my 9:30 mornings, Wednesday mornings. Welcome everyone back. They wanted to hear the end of it. I preview everything kind of on Wednesday mornings with my group, and here we go. But here's the question. Put the answer in the chat. What's the difference between a hippo and a zippo? So put the answer in the chat. I'll get the slideshow set up. But what's the difference between a hippo and a zippo? There we go. It's probably the dumbest way to start a webinar, but we're going to give it a run. Nobody has an answer. Nobody knows the difference between a hippo and a zippo. Wow. Well, I'm going to tell you right before we get started. The difference between a hippo and a zippo is this. One is big and heavy. The other one's a little lighter. That's your dad joke for the day. There you go. That's what you need. So anyway, we're going to talk about cash flow. We're going to talk about pricing strategies and things that you can consider. And I'm going to talk about the big 4 pricing strategies. And I'm going to talk about one in particular that's near and dear to accountants and bookkeepers. And that's the value pricing and kind of help clear it up to you. Like I think I've cleared it up a little bit better to me. So we're going to talk about that today. Why am I doing this, right? I've been doing this now. This is number 7. I agreed with Insightful Accountant to do these kind of monthly syndicated talks. This is number 7, but why? Why would you do that? Well, for me, my whole mission in life is to eliminate cash flow as the reason that businesses fail. So you got to think about it that way. I want to keep businesses in business. And the reason for that is that they have a dream, right? You have to be able to support somebody else's dream. And right now, there's about 18,000 businesses that fail per year by filing bankruptcy, right? That's still too high to me. I know it doesn't seem like a high number in the vast scheme of 28 million small businesses, but 18,000 is still too many. Now, the percent that I always hear from bankers is when they have clients that file bankruptcies, about 35% of those actually are making a profit, right? So think about that. They're making money on paper, but they file bankruptcy. That's a cash flow problem. That's a cash flow issue. So all of these talks, the last seven, have all been attacking a certain level of cash flow problems and where they come from, where they originate. So today we're going to talk about just pricing, and and the best way I can describe it to my clients is, yeah, it's a cost benefit relationship. You know, it's what people think is a valuable, what you think is a ripoff versus what you think is a bargain. But it's a complex dance in the market. How do I put my prices to where customers come in and they're happy to pay what what I'm asking them to pay, right? So, and to me, it's a reflection of this. When I think about putting a price tag on anything, I don't care if it's a shirt, I don't care if it's a hat, a service, doesn't matter. You have to be able to consider, you know, that price reflects my brand. Now, if you've been through any of my live presentations, every once in a while, I'll do this exercise called price doesn't matter, right? Because there is a buyer at every single price point. What you got to do is figure out where you want to focus your attention, your time, your money, your efforts, and build value for that buyer. That's how there's $100 bicycles at Walmart and there's $16,000 bicycles at the specialty bike shop. There is a buyer for a bicycle. You know, why would somebody want a fiber carbon bicycle that, you know, weighs 2.5 pounds? Well, here's the value statement for that. Somebody like me that's 250 pounds, if I'm going to ride a bike, I'm going to want a lighter bike. Why? If you've ever seen somebody walking their bike up a hill on the side of the road, they wish they had a lighter bike because they're already pushing their body. You also have to push the weight of the bicycle. So that weight of the bicycle, people think it's aerodynamics. I think it's just less effort to move the bike. You can go farther distances. You've got more endurance. If you're the type of person who likes longer bike rides, then the value statement has to be about this is an endurance type bike because the weight of the bike isn't contributing to the friction of the road, right? It's a light bike. So those are the things. And what we're trying to do, though, is in our pricing is find a way that we can still grow our business. We can still, you know, maintain that competitive edge and be unique, right? And unique's kind of the thing when we're talking about value pricing. You know, we have to find the uniqueness in what we do. And I'll explain that just a little bit on this next slide. So here are the big four. So when I was talking with some students at Trinity University just last week, they're putting together their business plan. They're talking about pricing strategies. And these are the four that kind of people always fall into, right? It's based on cost. It's based on value. It's based on, you know, what your competition is doing, or it could be dynamic where it just kind of changes based on demand, right? So demand based is dynamic pricing. But let's talk about each one of them just a little bit. Probably cost-based is the most popular. It's the one that makes the most sense. It's the one that, you know what something costs, you buy it, we'll say at a retail shop, and then you mark it up. Well, people go, well, how much do I mark it up? Anybody know in the chat how much you mark things up? Real simple answer, right? So you mark things up enough to cover your cost plus a little profit. So think about that. If the industry is making 10% profit, then you should make 10% or more. Then also cover your cost. That's how you determine what your gross profit margin should be. And then you can turn that into the markup, right? So in my course, I teach the difference between markup and margin. Markup is the percentage of cost. Margin is a percentage of sales. So kind of think about it that way, percentage of cost versus percentage of sales. But to give you an example, because I can't just talk about these and not give you an example of who does this, but look at Walmart, right? Walmart is the type of company that buys goods from other vendors then they put a markup on that cost. And of course, that cost becomes part of their profit strategy. And you're saying, well, wait a second. If it's just the cost of the product, how do I account for the operating and the operating expenses and the payroll, right? Because that's not included in the cost of the product. It is included in the cost of the markup, right? The amount they mark it up is enough to cover the operating expense and the payroll, right? And a little profit at the end. So that's kind of how they determine what is the markup on cost. So Walmart and other companies that do that, that's how it works. The next one is the most popular one with accountants and bookkeepers right now. It goes away from cost base, like your hours, hourly costs, those type of things, into what is the perception of the customer? What do they think it's worth? Now, in the 30 minutes right before this, I asked the same question, and they came up with names like Starbucks, and they came up with names like, who was the other one? Apple. And you're like going, yeah, those are value-based pricing companies. And you're like going, really? Starbucks is like that too? Yeah, think about it. I mean, does a cup of coffee really cost, up to $4, $5, $6, $7? Right? It probably doesn't. You can probably make cups of coffee for 50 cents or even less. I don't know. I don't know what the cost is, but it's not about the cost. What they've done is they've established a way to do pricing that the market will support. And so that's why in one of my courses, I teach about active pricing, which is how Starbucks actually changes their prices every 3 to 4 months. That's why you don't know what anything costs at Starbucks. So if you go in there, they're all multiples of 5. It's 0 or 5, and they're all different prices because they will manipulate the price until demand starts to come down. That's a market-based price. That means the customer no longer values a caramel macchiato at $5, but they value it at $4.75 because they buy more of them. That's active pricing. It's also called price elasticity of demand, right? And I'm going to explain kind of how that works next. But Apple also is a more value-based company, right? They don't care about the cost as much because they're marking up the price until you stop buying it. 10 years ago, you could get an iPhone for $600. Now they're $1,600, right? That's a huge markup over a decade. And the cost of the materials didn't go up that much along with it. But what they're doing is they're testing the market to see how much you're willing to pay. Now, what they should be seeing is people are no longer sitting in lines for 2 weeks or a week to be first. Why? Because now the price is a little high. Maybe we'll wait. People are waiting to change in their phones. So that's why they broke into Apple Music and data storage and all these other supplemental businesses, because the phone business is slow. Nobody's upgrading their phone as often as they used to. The one that I brought up today was kind of interesting, though. Tesla is actually a value-based company. Tesla is. And you got to remember, value-based pricing was built by McKinsey and Company, which is, a consulting company, which makes it an easy connection back to accountants and bookkeepers. But Tesla was one of those companies that said, we're going to differentiate in the market. And that's the key term. We're going to differentiate in the market with electric vehicles. The first electric vehicles looked like the smart car. Remember the little thing kind of looked like a bug, but it looked like the smart car. And Tesla came out with the very first electric vehicle that was cool, right? It was called the Roadster. If you go back to like 2008, 2009, somewhere in there, they got this thing called the Roadster. And there was a line for people to get, one of these Roadsters. You had to wait. You had to be one of the special people, and the price shot up immensely, right, to buy one. Once he had established that electric cars can be cool, they can be fast, they can be not, as powerful as just a regular gas car. Once he had established that with the Roadster, he was able to introduce a sedan, right? And then he brought out the S model, and the S model made regular families go, yeah, electric cars can be cool. That's not a bad looking sedan. It looks just like our Camry. It looks just like the other cars that we drive, but it had this cool technology on the inside. The technology was the dashboard that looked like a computer screen. It was a ludicrous mode that threw you back in the seat. So now dads that just didn't want to do a electric car thought it was cool to drive a Tesla, so he sold Teslas into the families, right? And now that families were doing it, then he made the SUV, the X, and then of course now he's saying, okay, well, families are doing it. Why not try to get younger people with lower incomes into it? And he made the 3, and the 3 is the $30,000-$40,000 entry version of Tesla. But he just does that because that's what the market's willing to pay. It's not about cost. His is how much can I get out of a person for that car. All right, let's go down to competition based now. Competition based is about positioning against your competitors, meaning I want to either be equal to or I want to be better than or cheaper than, right? So if you look at real estate a lot of times is competition based because they'll do all this comparables. Buying a business is kind of competition based. What is it worth, elsewhere? Where else can I get it? But like in my neighborhood, you know, when you try to price your home for sale, that's what they're doing. They're saying, okay, well, similar homes, same square foot, same number of bedrooms, same number of bathrooms, same amount of lot should cost about this much. And they're positioning you to look either attractive or the same as the market so you can get all the value out of it. But some companies will actually take an active stance for competition-based pricing. And the one I'm thinking of this week is JetBlue. JetBlue's whole strategy is we are the most economical airline, right? It doesn't matter what you can get at American Airlines or even Southwest, we're going to be cheaper. So they are constantly scouring the internet for pricing information from their competitors, and they price their similar trips cheaper. So you make a choice. Hey, I can get it for $234 from Delta, or I can get it for $185 from JetBlue, and you make the choice based on that. So that's their whole thing on competition based. The last one is dynamic pricing, and we can go around the world on this. I mean, it could be gas, it could be, I look at gas as more competition based because when one person changes their price down the street, so the other ones follow. They just kind of all happen around the same time. But dynamic pricing a lot of times is based on demand. When more people want something, the price shoots up, right? I mean, that's like, sometimes the futures in the farm market will do that. But the one I'm thinking about for this course is Uber. And you've all probably seen it where you go try to get an Uber and you hit this thing called surge pricing. Why is there surge pricing? Well, because more people are trying to get the car and they only have so many cars. So if you want to get the car, you have to pay more money. And that's dynamic pricing, is that they're waiting for the time when more people are asking for cars and then they adjust it and move it up. Right. So that's dynamic pricing strategies. So these are kind of the top 4. You can probably think of a few others, but most people hover in the cost based. Most people are trying to understand and do value based. These two, you've got to be in the right industry. I think these are a little bit more industry specific, whether or not I can do dynamic based or competition based type pricing. So let me dig into the one that I think is the most mystical. And I call it mystical because, there's sometimes people would even disagree what it is, right? Is it, I will charge whatever the customer is willing to pay, or is there more of a market for it that I have to be in kind of an equivalency based on what they expect, right? So this is what the original chart looked like from McKinsey. Okay, I got a question. The change of Starbucks coffee based on demand is considered a dynamic pricing, or better categorize it under value-based or a mix of both. I actually like it as a value-based, but I can see where you say it's dynamic pricing. I think it was going to, if it was dynamic pricing, it would change daily. Like when there was 25 people, this is how I differentiate in my mind. If there was a line out the door, then the price would go up until the line went away, right? That's more dynamic, which means it's happening in real time. That's a dynamic pricing strategy. And I hope that makes sense. You can always shoot it in the chat, say, yeah, that makes sense. But value-based pricing is I'm going to adjust it every 3 or 4 months just to see what demand does. So think about, that's the differentiation. Is value pricing is how much do people value their coffee that they're still willing to pay for it, or I change my price when there's more people wanting it right now. All right. Okay, I think that answer live, done. So this was the original chart built by McKinsey, right? And I'm gonna go backwards just one. So, and basically what they were saying is that people will pay whatever they think it's worth, regardless of cost. You notice there's nothing on here. It's got perceived price and perceived benefit. It ignores what it costs you to do, right? That's what value pricing does. Now, perceived price is whatever I perceive. This could even include the time to go drive over your place. Like I'm going, oh, shoot, that's like 15 minutes and it's 5 o'clock during rush hour. I'm not doing it. That's a cost, right? That's a cost to me. The price of going and getting that product is part of that. So perceived price is everything around what it costs the consumer or the buyer to get your product. Perceived benefit is all the things that I get because I did that, because I drove across town, because I paid that amount of money. This is the benefit or the experience that I got. So if you can understand those two, you can see how it plays out in your community. The biggest thing that I can see it in is we'll just use it that all of us can understand right now is hamburgers, right? So when I've asked this question, I've asked it to, I don't know, 50 to 100 different groups. I say, hey, what's the average hamburger cost in your town? Right. And generally they come up to about $12. And what that means is $12 is equivalent to what I think, a hamburger should cost and what it should taste like and what it should feel like to be able to sit in a restaurant and eat that hamburger. Nobody ever complains. So if I open up a menu and I see $12, I'm like, yeah, it seems right. But I also know that in my town, there's places I can get it cheaper than that, right? I can get $5 hamburgers at In-N-Out or Whataburger, right? I can go there. But the difference here is the experience. The price is lower, but so's the experience, so's the benefit. Because for my $5 hamburger, what they do is they take the same patty, the same bun, the same garden stuff. They throw it in a wrapper, they throw it in a bag, they throw it out the window at me. Then if I want to go sit inside, I sit in a plastic chair that maybe is bolted to the ground, a table that's bolted to the ground. And I probably at night, they take a hose and just wipe the whole place down, just get all the crumbs and stuff out. That's the experience you get when you go to get a $5 hamburger. When I get a $12 hamburger, maybe I'm sitting down at an Applebee's or a Chili's or something like that. Maybe it's 12. That's kind of what I expect. Family restaurant, chain probably, and that's what it is. But there's probably also places inside your city that you can get an $18 hamburger. Think about what I just said. Here's a hamburger at $5. Here's a hamburger at $12. Here's a hamburger at $18. Bun, patty, garden stuff. That's what it is. Why do people pay $18 at one place and $5 at another? Well, it's that experience, that benefit. You see, the price went up, but so did the benefit. The benefit increased. The benefit got larger. So that means I expected more. Maybe I got a tablecloth now. Maybe the lighting's a little dim. There's music in the background. The person, has a towel over his arm, and he's also invited me to have a cocktail or wine or something like that. The whole experience of buying that hamburger is different. So I think the $18 is worth it. And then they probably have a $75 steak on the menu with it. But I'm just saying the hamburger is $18. So all of a sudden, that looks like it's okay to me. This creates what they call the value equivalency line, where the same type of service can be sold at different prices depending on what the customer expects. What's the perception of the benefit to the customer? That's value pricing in accountants and bookkeepers. Because here's what happens. Sometimes we guess on the price, like, well, I wonder what somebody's going to pay. And if I do one way or the other, I'm either going to create value or I'm going to destroy value based on my pricing guess. But even the guess is okay at first, because now you'll have feedback from the community to be able to make adjustments to get closer to that value equivalency line where price is equal to benefit. But let's say I take a $12 hamburger. But when you bite into it or you come to my restaurant, you go, man, this feels good. This is better than Applebee's. It's not quite J Prime, but it's better than Applebee's, right? I get a better experience out of it. Well, what do we call that, right? What do we tell ourselves? Man, this is better than Applebee's for the same cost. Well, we call that a bargain. Man, I would much rather go, to the green restaurant than the blue restaurant because I feel like it's worth the money. I feel like it's worth more. It's less expensive than the $12 hamburger to me now. Well, if we're consulting our clients, there's a couple different things we can ask them to do at this point in time. If they're not happy with this, or if you're trying to get them to make more money, right? There's only 4 ways to make more money in a company, and that's increase price, increase sales, cut operating expense, or buy better, buy your inventory or cost of goods sold better. Well, in this case, we can say, hey, listen, you got two choices. You can make it more terrible. Right? You don't have to do as much in your restaurant. You can bring it back, the quality back, or you could raise price. We know that maybe you're not J Prime, so maybe it's $17, maybe it's $16. But there's a price adjustment you can make because now you've placed yourself between the center line, which is kind of the Applebee's, and the J Primes of the world, which is kind of the $18 hamburger. So now you know this is making decisions based on data that you have. When people are telling you that, oh, this is worth a lot more, I would pay more for that, then you know you're a bargain and you got some choices you can make. The other side of the coin is sometimes I have a $12 hamburger that this feels more like a fast food restaurant than it does Applebee's, right? You know, some of these shops where you go in and go, man, they're charging Applebee's prices, but I'm not, it's like closer to Whataburger experience or In-N-Out Burger experience. Well, that's the opposite effect, right? And we call it in real terms ripoff. Oh man, it just didn't feel like it was worth the money. It just didn't feel like it. Remember, this is the customer's perception. We put it at 12. They felt like they were ripped off. That's a piece of data for us where we can make two adjustments. We can either increase the quality of our place, our experience, our burger, or we can lower the price. This is helping you find that right equivalency line. And it's not just set and forget. This is why Starbucks is always kind of messing with the pricing because as the demand comes down, people go, it's not worth it to get the $6 caramel macchiato. They'll lower the price down to $5.50 and more people will buy it again. Right. So they're always kind of pushing the market to see where it's going. And that's more value-based pricing. I had a question. I didn't see it. Can you share the link for the handouts? Oh, yeah, I gave the handouts. Oh, she already did. There it is. So, what I'm trying to do with you guys, right? Coming up at the end, what I'm trying to do with you guys is I want to prepare one of those charts for this group. So I've asked my folks with Cashflow Mike and all my members, all my members to go to this link, and I'll put the link in the chat as well. I can't copy it there, but go to the link and there's a list of just services that an accountant or bookkeeper could provide. And what I want you to do is just select what's the lowest amount of monthly revenue you would accept from your client to include that service, which means what's the lowest amount where you would put that type of money. Oh, where'd my thing go? Oh, there it is. What's the lowest amount? Would you put it in a $500 a month package? Would you put it in a $5,000 a month package? Right. So what I'm trying to do is understand what these services are worth to you. Right. What would you put them in? So what we're doing is building on a package. Now, I assume you only make one note, right? Put a selection here on the 500 to 1,000. When you do that, I assume it's also going to be included in higher price package. So we're looking for the lowest amount. And what I'll do is I'll create the chart and everybody that submits, I'll send them the results. So you can kind of see how this plays out among our community. You know, what people are kind of charging this value-based price, creating the value equivalency line for accountants and bookkeepers. So I will go here and get the link and give it to them. Or can somebody get that link? Maybe not. But if you want to know more about me, I'll go get the link and put it in chat before I get off. You can go to Cashflow Mike. I've got this free book that you can get right off my webpage called The 7-Minute Conversation. If you haven't got it already, it's how to analyze any company in 7 minutes or less. Got a podcast on all the major directories called Mike and Blaine, where we talk about business, beer, and BS. So looking forward to connecting with you. Let me go get that link and throw it in the chat, and I'm going to pass it back to Cheska so she can kind of close her up, and I'll go to this link.
All
Cheska's.
right. Yeah, I'm
Oh,
here. Yeah, all right. Well, thank you so much, everybody. This is a really good one to actually listen to. I love these kinds of topics. Yeah, and actually we have a few people kind of throwing up the link to that in there.
there you go.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Mariel's already had it. Got it.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. All right. Well, thank you again, everybody. And do not forget, we have many other webinars for you coming this month, as well as, Mike's is also going to be up right on our educational webinars page, right on our site for next month. All right. Well, actually, that's it for today. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you again for next month's session. All right. Happy Valentine's Day. Goodbye.
Take care.